Working Cows Podcast, episode 373. This episode is brought to you by Farming Without the Bank.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag Studios. And this episode is brought to you by Farming Without the Bank. None of you are farming like you did 100 years ago. Why are you financing it like you did 100 years ago? The biggest part of your operation is the money that runs through your hands, and you let someone else control that. The bank gets the final say in what you get money for and when you pay it back. For many, this is a great relationship. Until it's not. Farming Without the Bank shows you how you can take back control of your money so that you can make the bank plan B instead of plan A. This is done by you creating your own banking system you own and control. To learn more, tune into the Farming Without the Bank podcast and go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book. Once you've read the book, Mary Jo will meet with you one-on-one and help you determine where and how to get started. She'll most likely also touch base on some estate transition ideas, financing ideas, business growth or startup ideas, and many other things she has experience with from helping thousands of farmers and ranchers like you. So go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book today and subscribe to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. Very excited to be joined today by Leanne Fuchs. Leanne is a chiropractor and also a homeopathic health practitioner. Among other things, she's got a wide array of emphases in her practice, and some of the things that some of the ways that she approaches human health is just a little bit different than maybe the conventional model, and always looking for other ways to approach these things. And other avenues to think about. As I've said often, maybe not as often as I used to say it, but I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm just here to give you something to think about on the podcast. And so always encourage you to do your own homework, check things out, see if it's right for you. And if it's something that does net good results and is in line with your values, then by all means, continue on down that road. So we're going to talk today to Leanne about just kind of where she goes with clients. You know, what is she trying to accomplish? What is she asking? What questions is she asking? How is she approaching those first few visits? And then how does she go on throughout their time with her and some of the results that she has seen? So, Leanne, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows podcast.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Clay.
Yeah, actually, you come recommended by more than just your husband, although that's a great endorsement. But at Dallas Mount told me one time at a workshop, he said, you should talk to Leanne. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. And so I've been definitely exploring alternative ways of thinking about health and wellness in my own life and in the life of my family in recent years. And so definitely open to that, and maybe alternative isn't the right way to term it, because I think that, as I said, to you earlier, I think that God has provided everything that we needed to thrive before the advent of modern medicine. And so, there's lots of different terms we can use, and probably all of them come with their own set of baggage and their own way of being loaded. So I'll just let you kind of define and outline how you think about health and wellness and the different approaches that exist, and the one that you are most passionate about.
Well, for me, I think health is not only the absence of diseases or symptomatology, but a mental, physical, and a spiritual state of mind that is and expresses well-being and a movement and direction towards a higher state of existence in those three areas.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I've often talked about when we encounter the word peace in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament. It's the idea of shalom. And whenever I talk about that, I say mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, and relationally. That's the peace that God brings into our lives when we kind of submit to his rule over our lives. Then all of these things come along with that. And so I appreciate that, and I've often said that's just holistic peace. It's kind of every area of our life being at peace, and so I think that's probably somewhat aligned with what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect word. It's an alignment, right? And I always try to work my life towards truth, right? I try to remove arbitraries. I try to move extraneous things. I'm always looking objective. I look to see for a pattern of workability and effectiveness in anything that I do within my life, whether it be the health realm, the spiritual realm, the mental realm, and things of that nature. So I absolutely would agree with you. Alignment towards simplicity. I find that things typically that tend to be truthful are more simple. And like we already mentioned, really get back to nature and the fundamentals that were already here in existence when we came about and were born and brought into this life, that they were already there.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, say you've got a client coming to you fresh. Maybe they've been, in the conventional space of health and wellness, and now they're interested in maybe taking a different approach for a myriad of reasons, right? Where do you start? What's kind of your first place that you start looking at and say, okay, here is how we're going to approach getting you moved in the direction of being mentally, mentally, physically, and spiritually healthy?
Okay, so if it would be okay, I'll just give you a little bit of background on me,
Yep.
and then it'll help you see my way that I will look at a patient when they come into me and how I evaluate. So when I got my first undergrad degree at Illinois State University in physical education. It was my first bachelor's degree that I got. And I just didn't feel like I had reached the point where I was done seeking more knowledge. And so I was like looking, and I was talking to a friend of mine, actually my father, who is a retired OBGYN. And he was like, Leanne, you've always been fantastic with your hands. What about massage therapy school? And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that really indicates to me. I think that I would really like to be in touch with people and communicating with my hands, my body, and just help that way. So I went and got my massage therapy degree and national certification. And I think that was back in 1994. And then while I was there, I hadn't gotten that end point. I was like, man, I still was driven to higher learning. And one of the doctors there that was teaching anatomy and physiology, his name was Dr. Kim Wickwire, and he was a chiropractor, a graduate of Logan College of Chiropractic. And I, again, being from a medical background of my father being an MD, my mom, my stepmom, my nana, all being nurses and all very, very amazing and competent, I was like, yeah, okay. Well, I didn't know much about chiropractic, but it really indicated to me on the natural approach to health and wellness before a person got sick. What could we do to be proactive and really help somebody in their life before they had to actually suffer and lose that quality of life? And I was like, I like this. So I applied to Logan in St. Louis and was accepted. And then I got my second bachelor's degree in human biology. And then I graduated from Logan in August of 1999 and started my clinical practice throughout my shingle November 1st. Didn't know anything about business. I just knew that I wanted to help. And the first year, I think I cried every night after leaving clinical practice because it was such a learning curve on how to help people. I knew how to help people, but learning how to get the word out and let people know who you were and what you did was a little bit of a super high gradient. So I persisted nevertheless and continued to train and to continue to hone my skills and became an exceptional chiropractor with a very high level of ability to communicate on the first visit. Like a patient would present into me, usually my first visits, depending on the clinical case, will go anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours, depending on if I'm addressing them as a chiropractic patient, purely structural, or if I'm actually going into it and delving into more of these cases where people will present to me, whether it be with MS or cancer or um, alpha gal syndrome or Lyme disease or diabetes, you name it. Then my examination process is completely different, and I'll delve into a different realm and path. But I found that when I was a chiropractor for 16 years and I really loved what I was doing, but I found that when I first started, my adjustments were way more effective than 16 years later. And that wouldn't make any sense because my clinical experience and expertise was at an all-time high, right? So you would think that the results would be better. And I was like, what has dropped out in society where my adjustments no longer hold? And in 1895, D.D. Palmer did his first chiropractic adjustment on a deaf man. He was a janitor, and he had bent underneath a table and had heard something pop, and he had immediately become deaf. And years later, D.D. Palmer was doing this research on chiropractic and noticed this gentleman had this disability, and also noticed that there was something out in his back, and basically communicated, hey, do you mind if I basically adjust this? And the gentleman obviously gave him the okay, and he adjusted it, and the man heard again instantly. That was the first chiropractic adjustment. That was the power of the chiropractic adjustment of removing interference between the brain and the body and restoring the innate intelligence and allowing that communication to happen and that electrical flow to happen through the nervous system, the spinal cord and the peripheral nerves, and then back into the brain. And I was like, wow, that really intrigued me. And then his son had similar phenomenal results and dealt with a myriad of illnesses, not just bones out of alignment, neck pain, back pain, knee pain. A lot of what you see chiropractors or structural chiropractors handling today, they dealt with a myriad of colic and ear infections and pneumonia, you name it. People went to chiropractors for that. And I was like, well, what dropped out? And D.D. Palmer, kind of like what you and I mentioned, had mentioned the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. But he also mentioned the nutritional aspect of health and well-being. And I was like, you know what? I definitely think that there is some area of health that has been dropped out, believing more that we've become a microwave society. When I was growing up in the 70s, my mom made everything from scratch. You know, she made her own bread. You know, we canned all of our green beans, and we had huge gardens, and all of our vegetables and all of our fruit trees, you know, we canned and froze, and we ate off of the land. And, you know, then there was the introduction and advent of the microwave, and it really changed all things and our ways of thinking. And I've since said that we have become a microwave society, in that if we don't get a result within 37 seconds, then there's something wrong with the technology or the tool that we're using. And that's not actually factually the case. The body heals, and it takes time. The physiological processes within the body itself take time to heal. And so I went down the route of undercutting and finding, okay, what could I do as an adjunct? Because I love chiropractic. I think it's absolutely fantastic and phenomenal. But what could I do to add to that to help and make sure that my patients' adjustments in their care they were really flying and really winning and really feeling a whole lot better. And so I found what is called nutrition response testing, which was created by Dr. Freddie Ulan, who himself had been very, very sick back in the 1990s and developed this phenomenal technology to evaluate the body and organs and systems that were under stress and actually get to the root cause of the illnesses and diseases, and then actually create a natural healthcare program for the patients, which would then bring them out of their state of disease and bring them back into homeostasis and harmony. When a patient comes into me, I just actually ask them what is needed and wanted. The first thing I do is I just get to know them. I think that's the most important thing in society. We have dropped out the importance of human relations and human interactions. So I just really just want to get to know them. And then I actually want to find out what's important to them. And then I will gear my examination towards accomplishing those things that are very important to them.
Yeah, I appreciate that history. In our own family, my son Calvin, be my second oldest boy. When he was young, 2 or 3 years old, was having issues with ears, constantly having issues with his ears, and to the point that we had scheduled an appointment with an ear, nose, and throat specialist. I think they were going to put tubes in his ears to help him drain, and one of our friends said, try the chiropractor first. And so we did that. Like, we had the appointment scheduled with the ENT specialist, and we went to the chiropractor before that. And, whenever the chiropractor adjusts my neck, I cringe a little bit. He would laugh when the chiropractor would adjust his neck. So I was like, oh, he's comfortable with this anyways. And so we figured out that when he would spike a fever, take him to the chiropractor, get him adjusted, wait a day, take him back, get him adjusted again, and that fixed the issue for a few weeks, 6 weeks, sometimes 6 months, and then he eventually grew out of that. But we didn't have to go to the ENT ever, but it was so bad that actually one time he ruptured an eardrum, and that was before we figured out the chiropractic adjustment would take care of it, so it's been something that we've seen definitely bear good fruit in our own family, and something that we have continued to make use of, as needed. And is that, in your mind, is that a sufficient approach, or do you think that chiropractic should be more regular than as needed? How do you think about that?
Oh man, I love you asking this question, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. The wonderful results and successes that your son had, and that you as your family have had with chiropractic. I always tell people I think chiropractic just rocks. I mean, when it is applied appropriately and correctly, chiropractic is just fantastic. So my own personal viewpoint, just because I feel like if there are interferences within the spine and interfering with the communication between the brain and the spinal cord and the peripheral nervous system to every cell, tissue, and organ within the body, it actually affects the overall function, right? So every 7 years, we have a brand new body. Every 7 years, we have a brand new body. So depending on what we do, depending on what I do today with my body, is going to positively or negatively affect my body in 7 years. So the fact that our body ages, yes, chronologically and physiologically, our body ages, but why do some people's bodies age a whole lot faster than others, right? Why can I get somebody who is chronologically age 50, but physiologically their body is at age 98, and I can get somebody who is 50, but their body physiologically is at 24? And I think it is what we put into it, whether it be the nourishment of our food, the water and the fluids that we're drinking, the rest, the stress. But also with me, it's a chiropractic adjustment, right? So I always say, if you've got a beautiful rose bush and you've got a hose going to the rose bush, as long as the water is being supplied to it, that rose bush is going to be vital and healthy, right? But what happens to a hose when you put a little kink into it? Mm-hmm. You start diminishing the water flow, right? And the rose bush might not necessarily be affected immediately. You might not necessarily be able to see, oh, wow, those leaves are wilting. But over time, you could actually see the leaves starting to wilt and the rose bush not flourishing as much. And then if you put a more severe kink, into the hose, then you can really see some drastic negative changes to the rose bush. Well, the same thing occurs with the body when there are subluxations, and every bone of the spine, like when I'm talking to my patients, I'm educating them, like, the first cervical vertebra is related to food intolerances. The second cervical vertebra is related to sinuses. And so when I'm looking at a person and patient and I'm evaluating them, I'm like, oh yeah, your C5, your cervical 5 is out. Well, that deals with sugar handling capabilities. So I'm like, then I go into a different conversation with them. I'm like, what are you eating? Did you have any processed foods? How's your sugar intake? This and that. And they're like, whoa, how did you know that? And I'm like, well, these bones correlate with organ function. And so, yeah, you can have a bone that goes out just because structurally it went out. You were throwing a sledgehammer, you were doing something, you slept awkwardly in bed and that bone just slipped out of place. But when I have patients come in and recurrently it's that same area, like thoracic level 4 in the middle back is related to gallbladder. So then I can start thinking, with that. And then I start thinking with, okay, is the organ causing this subluxation because of organ dysfunction? Or is the subluxation causing organ dysfunction? And it's this cyclical loop back. And so, I will evaluate, in that respect as well, and then maybe throw in some nutrition. But I always, first and foremost, to answer your question, is I ask what the patient wants. I'm like, what do you need and want? Do you just want acute care? Do you just want me to pop or do whatever technique? Because I use multiple different techniques. Some are very gentle and they're like, what did you even do to me? I feel fantastic. What did you do? But I'll ask, do you just want to feel better? Or do you want me to work on, is this something like a lifestyle wellness approach that you want to add this in so that you can maintain the health and integrity of your joints? And so sometimes people will be like, no, doc, just, get me out of pain. I'm like, no problem. I said, I'll get you out of pain. You just holler when you need me. And then other people are like, well, tell me more about this maintenance. And I'm like, well, an adjustment lasts for about 28 to 30 days. And I always say it's your body's WD-40. So when you want to lubricate and make sure joints are healthy, you want them moving, right? Well, an adjustment will take that joint, especially if it's locked and fixated, it's not getting any nourishment, it's not being lubricated. And when a bolt isn't moved or being maintained properly, it begins to rust. Well, the same premise happens within our body. And it's a good analogy because that rust actually in our body actually becomes what is known as arthritis or osteoarthritis. So I have a lot of patients that come to me for that maintenance aspect of just feeling fantastic, but also knowing that it's a preventative approach to avoid osteoarthritis or other degenerative joint diseases that can happen within the body, so that as they age, they can actually enjoy their golden years and not be bedridden or incapable of walking upstairs or downstairs or doing the things that they find enjoyment in life.
Yeah, it's kind of that every 7 years we've got a new body. We're going to do the routine maintenance through chiropractic adjustments to make sure that the next new body we get in 7 years is at least as good or better than, depending on our age, right? They're as good or better than the one we are in now, right? Is that kind of the way you're thinking about it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a fun game to play. Clay, I'm like, my game is when I'm 88 years old, I want to look and feel like I'm 38. And people are like, oh, well, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, but even if I couldn't do it, it's a great game. It's something great to strive for. I'm like, and what's the worst thing that can happen? Okay. Instead of feeling like I'm 38, I feel like I'm 48 or 58 when I'm 88, So I'm like, that's a really great game.
Yep. We've got
to play.
We've got a couple in our church that I think he'll be 84, maybe just turned 83 in March. And she's, I think, a couple years behind him. And for his birthday every year in March, they go skiing.
Oh, I love that.
And I one time asked his son, I said, what is the key? How have your parents continued to thrive into their 80s? And his answer was, my mom only ever cooks with whole ingredients. I was like, well, That's probably a good way to start.
Absolutely.
So let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Farming Without the Bank. None of you are farming like you did 100 years ago. Why are you financing it like you did 100 years ago? The biggest part of your operation is the money that runs through your hands, and you let someone else control that. The bank gets the final say in what you get money for and when you pay it back. For many, this is a great relationship, until it's not. Farming Without the Bank shows you how you can take back control of your money so that you can make the bank plan B instead of plan A. This is done by you creating your own banking system you own and control. To learn more, tune into the Farming Without the Bank podcast and go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book. Once you've read the book, Mary Jo will meet with you one-on-one and help you determine where and how to get started. She'll most likely also touch base on some estate transition ideas, financing ideas, business growth or startup ideas, and many other things she has experience with from helping thousands of farmers and ranchers like you. So go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book today and subscribe to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. And I think early on you mentioned kind of this idea of structural chiropractic. Is there another branch of chiropractic that's different, kind of a deeper in idea, or is there a kind of a distinction that you would make there between that and what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely am a structural chiropractor for sure, but then I advanced my learning. I took it to a higher level and became a master clinician with nutrition response testing. And that is where we actually delve into the world of herbs, homeopathic remedies, whole food nutrition, things of that nature. So, and also just like you said, using whole foods to eat. And eating and or drinking clean waters and things like that. So I have been doing nutrition response testing since 2015, and that approach adds to chiropractic in so many different ways. So it goes, and what I was finding was that my patients weren't holding their chiropractic adjustments, and I was like, well, why? And when I undercut it, I found it was the state of the society and the processed foods, the dead, devitalized foods that are food-like substances, but they actually serve no nutritive value for the body. And I always say, if you put something dead and devitalized into your body, that's exactly what you get out of it. So garbage in produces garbage and then garbage out. And so I wanted to find a way to enhance my chiropractic patients' health. And so I went down this journey of getting to the root cause of what was making people very, very sick. And so I use the nutrition response testing. I find areas in the body by using the nervous system to evaluate areas, whether it be the organs, muscles, tissues, heart, lung, brain, and find out if these areas are stressed. And then I find out and uncover what is the root cause of the stress. Is it a food issue? Are we having food sensitivities and intolerances, which is different from a food allergy? Are we dealing with pathogens? Do we have an immune challenge within the body? Clarified, you can find bacteria, viruses, parasite, fungal infections. You can have a virulence factor, which is just they die off from like these pathogens. When they're dying off, if they're not leaving the body, they can actually make things worse. I look for toxic chemicals, heavy metal manifestations. I look for scars within the body. And then I also deal with some other advanced technologies with post-pandemic situations, post-COVID type of long COVID type of situations that people are still presenting with. So that is where a lot of my love lies as well. And the successes are phenomenal when you just find the root cause of what's truly making a person sick.
Yeah, no, that's very, very cool. So you've talked about the kind of the process that you went through. People's adjustments aren't holding, and then into the nutrition response testing, and all of these different ways that people's ailments manifest. Can you kind of talk me through the basis or how that works? What's the mechanism? How are you determining what is the underlying cause, and go about fixing that?
Yeah. So like, let me try to, I always like to talk in analogies because I think it's really great to give a person a picture. So most people know what like an electrocardiograph machine is, those ECG machines where you're going to basically see how the heart is doing, right? So they'll put up leads or they'll put pads on a person's chest, right? And then they'll connect it to a screen or a graph, and then they'll run an electrical current between those things, right? So it can detect what's going on with the heart function, and then it'll display it in a graph or on like an oscilloscope that'll actually show the picture of what's going on, right? Um, so instead of me using like pads and electrical wire, what I do is I don't know if you know or are familiar with muscle testing. Are you familiar with muscle testing?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So then what I'll do is I will use their arm and their own strength, and I'll have them extend the arm out. And then what I'll do is I will use my hand to scan their body. So I will use my hand and put pressure over like their heart, gentle pressure, right? Just a little bit of pressure. So if an organ is already stressed, right? Like if, let's say a person is having issues with their heart and I put a little bit more gentle pressure over their heart, right? That typical arm that I'm using as an indicator muscle that I'm using as a muscle tester will go weak. And people are like, well, why does that go weak? Well, the simplicity of it is that the body's like, whoa, my heart is already stressed. Now I've got an extra stress coming into it. I need to shunt all of my power away from any other area of the body to that heart so I can overcome the stress that's being applied. And the arm goes weak. So what we do is I use that, and I will evaluate the entire body, every aspect, eyes, brain, throat, thyroid, heart, you name it, lungs, liver, gallbladder, spleen, large intestines, small intestines, adrenals, kidneys, and I'll go through a whole evaluation of the organs of the body. And if they have a specific area, if someone's presenting with gout, or if somebody is ruptured a knee meniscus or torn a knee meniscus or something along those lines, then I'll go and I'll also test those areas as well and see if we can't elicit, organ stress as evidenced by that muscular weakness. And then what I will do is I will narrow it down. So I might, in an examination, find the heart, the liver, and the thyroid. Well, those are three pretty big organs, right? And you could spend a lifetime or a lot of time just trying to handle all of those things. But what I find is that the body becomes overwhelmed if you try to handle all three things at once, right? It's like trying to have the child start kindergarten, and then we're going to have them learn fourth grade, and then we're going to have them start reading a little bit of Shakespeare as well. It's just a bit of an overwhelm for the child. Well, same thing with the body. If we're like, okay, your heart, your liver, and your thyroid are all really weak, we're just going to throw things at them like supplements and try and heal them. The body actually doesn't function like that. And so the technology that I use, we actually will find what is the number one organ that the body needs to be, it needs help with first. So usually people, when you're talking to somebody, you're like, well, it's their liver, their heart, or their thyroid. Immediately you should be able to be like, well, the heart's the most important, so let's tackle the heart. Well, not necessarily the case. It might be the liver or the thyroid. So I have a specific method where I can actually find out, okay, what is the one organ that this person needs handled first and foremost before we handle anything else. And then, so let's just take the heart, for instance. So once I find that, okay, the body is really overworked with the heart, then I'll use what we call tester kits, and they have I have hundreds and hundreds of different vials. They're called tester vials. of whether it be common foods or a pathogen or a heavy metal or a toxic chemical. And almost like an allergy test. You know how they'll prick the skin and see if there's an allergic reaction in the skin to tell whether or not a person is having an allergic reaction to it? Pretty much the same thing. I can use these tester vials and the body will react positively or negatively to these tester vials. And then I know, okay, hey, this person is struggling with this. And I develop not a differential diagnosis, but I develop, all these things that are negatively affecting the heart. And then what I'll do is, knowing what is the root cause of these, I will take the thousands of different herbs, vitamins, minerals, homeopathic remedies that I have. And that's when I'll start developing a solution specific for that individual and for that ailment. And then develop the program and then move forward. And then what I'll do is I'll go and I'll retest. So like if the heart was showing up as primary, I'll handle that. And then I'll go and I'll recheck, okay, how is the liver and the thyroid now doing after I've handled the heart? And 99% of the time when you handle the priority organ that is ill, when I go and recheck the liver and the thyroid in this example, they're 100% handled. They're 100% remedied. And the reason is that when an organ becomes very, very ill and sick, other organs will start shunting energy and their own vitality to help its other organ, right? And so then those organs become to get run down and stressed. And so when you handle that primary organ, those other organs are like, whew, I don't have to help you out anymore. And boom, just by handling the most affected organ, those other organs basically come back to battery. And that's what I do. The programs are usually very, very simple for my patients. And then I will send them home and I will put together a report of findings and I'll go over with them on the next visit exactly what I found. I spend time with them. I really explain, okay, this is what's going on so that they really get it, because this is important to them. It's very important to me, but it's very important to them. They really do want to know what's going on with their body. And I break it down in a way that they can actually understand it. And they are like, yeah, I get that. And then we start them out. And I will work with them. Every case obviously is individual. And I like that approach. Everybody is individual. There's no cookie cutter approach to anyone. But I will typically follow up with them in 1 to 2 weeks and do a follow-up visit to see the improvement in the status of the organs that were showing up with the initial exam.
Do you run into skeptics in this field?
You know what? It's funny, not really. And I think it's because of the way that I educate and communicate. The first thing is I think that you can make anything look weird if you don't explain it correctly. So the first visit, I sit down with the patient. And like I said, I spend anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours with the patient. First of all, educating them. And another thing that I'd like to say is our clinics are all referral based, word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And we, at one point in time, had a 70 patient waiting list because we were so overwhelmed with the demand for what we do. So I think it's all in the time that you take and the way that you educate people. It makes sense to them. And honestly, a lot of times, I don't know if it's a respect factor, but people just don't approach us with cynicism or criticism. But like I said, it's a word of mouth referral base. So people are that come to us are already wanting what we do. So that might be why it diminishes the amount of criticism. But I find that through education and just a really good conversation, you can really handle the majority of people's considerations. And if you don't make it seem really esoteric and weird, then it just isn't.
I think that people probably in a lot of cases have tried other things already and said, well, that didn't work. I'm on a journey here to find a solution to this issue that I'm dealing with. And so they probably come to it from a more open-minded perspective. And as you said, referrals, like-minded people are referring them. And so that helps as well, I'm sure.
Oh, it really does. And I work, like I said, my father was a very prominent, successful OBGYN, and my mom and stepmom and Nana were all nurses. And so I have a high respect for other health care practitioners. And when a patient comes to me, there is no ego. I don't operate with an ego. I operate with a workability, and that person in front of me, I'm there to serve my patient, and I will work with whoever I have to work with to get that product of health and well-being back to this person. So whatever I have to do, we're going to do it. And so I think that viewpoint, the way I approach my patients also is very, it disarms any type of like consideration of things not working as well. Like, if you meet somebody and they're very rigid, you sometimes tend to become rigid up against them. Well, I tend to think that all health practitioners and fields do absolutely offer wonderful things for people. And so, yes, some things might not have worked, but I will never negate that. I'll never be like, oh yeah, poo-poo this. No, it just might not have been the right thing at the right time. And so I allow that ability to bring in other professionals, practitioners, experts in, and we can work together harmoniously to really accomplish a successful end. And then you're right. Some people just have not found solutions, and then they come to me, and we just spend the time, and I work diligently and dedicatedly on each patient. Like I always say that when they walk into our office, they become part of our family. And my husband treats everybody that walks into our clinic as if they were family. And so, how you would care for your family and anything you would do. That's just the way we operate. And so our success rates are absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, with MS cases, cancers, you name it. I have seen bodies heal wonderfully. And I just love the fact that I've been allowed an opportunity to take part in that with them.
Is there a network of people who are taking a similar approach to you? Like, we're talking to people in probably all 50 states, Canada, Mexico, and a few other countries. Is there a network of people who are taking this approach that people could find in their area, or how would they go about finding somebody who's kind of taking a similar approach?
Man, Clay, I love that you asked that. That's really cool of you. So yeah, it's called nutrition response testing, or ULAN, ULAN, nutritional systems. And they can Google either of those, and it will take them to the website. And at the very bottom of the page, it says, find a practitioner, and they can put in their zip code, and that will actually take them to, if it's in the area, it only references advanced practitioners and above, like advanced practitioners and master clinicians. So they know that they're actually getting a standard application of technology with these practitioners when they seek this out. So yeah, they can Google it, or use any type of web browser to find ULAN nutritional systems or nutrition response testing, and find practitioners like me in the 50 states. And yes, they are in other countries as well.
Very good. Now, kind of as we point towards wrapping up here, I'd like to give you an opportunity to kind of lay out an optimal approach to health. And I know you said earlier it wasn't a cookie cutter system, but are there commonalities that you say, maybe don't eat this, maybe don't use these kinds of products and some of those things? Are there some of those things that kind of broad categories help people kind of have a framework for how they approach what they eat, and then also beyond that? We've talked a little bit about the maintenance, maybe once a month. It kind of sounds like as far as the maintenance for a chiropractic adjustment. But can you just kind of lay out kind of the optimal approach that you kind of see people more often than not who are thriving end up taking?
Oh, absolutely. So I could kind of give you like from the way that Eric and I live our lives. So and again, this might not be practical, or people might not have these resources, but they can always think with this. So again, we like to eat whole foods, whole natural foods. We try to get as much organic, and or regenerative agriculture and regenerative foods as we can brought to the table. So that would be the first thing. I always say that you want to eat vital, living, nourishing foods. So, whether that be getting in your fresh fruits and vegetables, or if you don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables or a garden, go to the store and make sure you could get your organic vegetables frozen. They do a lot of these flash freezing processes with organic vegetables, and you can find them at Aldi's or Walmart or Kroger or whatever grocery store you might have. That's a really good alternative. You can also get some organic canned vegetables as well, but definitely I would steer more towards organic if you could. And then we try to eat our meats. We eat that are, again, from regenerative fields and farms that maybe try to use less chemicals, less hormones or no hormones, less antibiotics or no antibiotics, along that frame of reference you can think with. We're trying to get the meat as clean as possible. And we do like grass-fed, grass-finished. But if that's not possible, that's fine, non-GMO corn or feed. Or if you can't find that, then just finding animals that have been out on the pasture and that are also fed some corn and other grains is totally fine. I also focus on exercise. So I will exercise my body. This isn't for everybody, but I would say a minimum of 2 to 3 days a week for people. I exercise my body because I feel like it stimulates secretion of chemicals and healing hormones from my muscles. So I'll work out about 5 to 6 days a week. I'll do I lift. So I'm 52. So lifting heavier weights will allow the bone density. So people, if they're women, if they're worried about bone density, adding in a workout plan where you're using some good weights, gradiently work up to it. That will help the bone and joint structure and prevent or actually help slow down osteoporosis or osteopenia. Another thing is drinking clean water, right? So some people prefer reverse osmosis. Some people prefer spring water. We do distillation process with our water, and then we re-add minerals back into it because distilled water it's devoid of any type of mineral, and your body does need minerals. So we'll just put minerals back into it. And then we apply, we go to sleep at a pretty good time. So, when you're dealing with the circadian rhythm, the best time to actually go to bed is, between 9 and 9:30. And that might not be practical for people. They might be going to bed at midnight or 11 or what have you. So when I'm dealing with my patients, I try to back them like 15-minute cycles. Like, so if they're going to bed at, midnight, maybe 11:45, and do that for a week, and then 11:30 and do that for a week, because once you pass that point at like 9:30, that area, your circadian rhythm and your cortisol spikes up again, and it will cause sleep disturbances. And that actually can age a person and actually begin the disease or disease process within a body, and take away from well-being and precipitate some illnesses. And so Eric and I also do saunas. So we have an infrared sauna. It wasn't very expensive at all, but we do saunas a minimum. You can do it 2 to 3 days a week. We do it usually about 4 to 5 days a week. And that will scour the blood and remove free radicals, which are basically like rust on the inside. And so this is like our natural anti-aging that we do. And then we also do cold showers, which are absolutely wonderful. And again, wonderful to fight the aging process. So even if a person just did a little bit of that, ate clean food, stayed away from the highly processed food that can stay on a shelf for, 1 to 2 to 3 years and not decay. I know some people have probably seen these McDonald's hamburger commercials, or people have done experiments and they set a hamburger out, and then like 17 years later they went to the hamburger and it was still the same. It was just hard as a rock, but there was no mold, there was nothing on it. And so I would say stay away from foods that have had all of the enzymes and nutrients and vitamins and minerals removed. Stay away from that, because when you eat those types of foods, your body wants to fill that vacuum, so it will leach it out of your own body reserves. So by eating those foods, not only does it not give you anything, but then it pulls and leaches from your own reserves of health. And so you get sicker. So Eric and I operate with a philosophy of, we have treats. So like when I was growing up in the 70s, a treat was maybe for our birthday, maybe for a holiday, like tomorrow it's 4th of July, we would treat ourselves with maybe some ice cream or pizza or whatever is that item for that person, but we actually use it as a treat. I find that treats in today's society have become breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so we stay away from that. And we actually really do enjoy and love eating the way we cook. I mean, we sometimes are like, let's go out to eat and this and that. And sometimes we're left disappointed because we're like, man, what we cook at home is so much better, And so
those not to mention the way you feel after it.
yeah, and a whole lot less expensive too.
Right.
But just those are some of the things that, I would, that Eric and I live our life. That's the way we live our lives.
Sure. So when you talk about whole food ingredients, are we talking basically meat and fruits and vegetables? Is that?
Oh, yes. And I'm a firm believer in fats. You absolutely like this low fat fad and trend that has been pushed on society has only led to a society that is sicker and more overweight and struggling with all aspects of wellness. And so, we're big proponents of eating good fats, but a good fat can also come off of a steak. It can come from pork and bacon, olive oil, avocado oil, it's not just, I would absolutely stay away from seed oils, this corn oil and these nut oils, peanut, canola oil. A lot of these are GMO and they're very rancid. So in our house, we have organic olive oil, we have avocado oil, and then we use bacon grease. We use fat off of our steak. We eat it, and we use, butter, grass-fed organic butter, heavy cream. We don't back off of that. And actually my cholesterol is too low. I need to raise it up. But one driving thing that drives cholesterols are sugars. And that is what has been, it's been a false campaign to society, is that, oh gosh, fat makes you fat. No, it doesn't. And fat raises your cholesterol. No, it doesn't. I bet I eat at least 4 eggs for breakfast, 3 to 4 eggs for breakfast, and then we'll eat them later on. So that does not raise cholesterol. White refined sugars, highly processed sugars of that nature will actually drive up cholesterol levels, and refined carbs, refined grains, white bleached flour, and you can think with that group and category of foods. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Yep. What about coconut oil? I've heard rumblings not good. It is. You like it?
I love it. It's a medium chain triglyceride. So what that means is that it processes in your body as an energy and is not stored as a fat. So it is a really good source of energy taken into the body itself. And so I absolutely would recommend that, as another addition to the other fats that I recommended. Yeah, you hear so many different. Everybody has an opinion, but I do on workability, and I have notes through how it feels in my body. And the medium chain triglyceride is just wonderful. I mean, excuse me, the coconut oil that is a medium chain triglyceride is just absolutely fantastic for the body. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never know where these, this is bad, stay away from it, is coming from, right?
Right.
who paid for the study? That's really what determines how
That's
bad
right.
or good something is.
You pull the string. Yep. See who paid for that study, who's a vested interest in it. That's right.
For sure. Well, Leanne, I really appreciate your time today. Is there anything else that you think really needs to be said on this part of this topic? And certainly we could go deeper on all of these subjects, but something that you came here today thinking, if I don't get this said, I've missed the opportunity.
Well, I think just to tie in with your podcast, Eric, with Understanding Ag and our farm and the regenerative practices that we apply those on our soils, and that microbiome in the soil is actually transferred into the microbiome of the human biology and the human gut. And those things are not separate and distinct from one another. Those things are intimately related and impactful on each other. And so I think that I would have been remiss, like you said, to have not mentioned what Eric does and what we're doing on our farm with the regenerative agricultural practices that we apply daily.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll definitely, when time allows, get you guys back on and talk a little bit about that as well. I think that as I was introducing this episode on the last episode that I was producing, I said, profit in agriculture isn't worth a whole lot if you're not healthy enough to enjoy it.
Oh my gosh. Yes. 100% agree with you. Yes.
Leanne, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Clay, thank you so much for having me. It was such a privilege to be on your show today. Thank you.
Very good stuff there with Leanne. Really appreciate her perspective and just the way she thinks about some of those things and how she communicates what she's trying to accomplish on the human health side of the equation. Coming up next week on the Working Cows podcast, we're going to be joined by a couple of members of the team over at Understanding Ag. We're going to talk to Brian Doherty and Luke Jones about cover crops. And I am fresh off of an Understanding Ag Soil Health Academy school. And so pretty excited to have a conversation with them and kind of see if I'm tracking and understanding some of the way they're thinking about cover crops and their role in our agricultural systems. So looking forward to that. We'll see you again real soon with another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.